Howdy, friendos. Welcome back aboard the well, we haven't named this cloning station just yet, but as soon as we do, I'll let you know. At the moment, the Emperor was just catching wart up on everything that he's missed in the last few years. Meanwhile, our clone army, fresh as a bug snug in a rug or something like that, is, trying to make some nutrient-paced meals and just kind of wandering aimlessly. Seems like there could be something they could spend their time doing, you would think. That's it. More construction. I think we'll add on to the station once more, this time just off of our mechanoid laboratory. This shall be our training bay. Now, of course, we're not going to be using any live weapons in here, mostly because we could blast through a hole in the wall and then suck all the baby clones out and kill them, and it'd be a whole ordeal. So instead, I think we'll build some holodecks. You can think of a holodeck kind of like a virtual reality simulator, but without the headset, that will put our clones in a variety of different types of situations that will have them well prepared for any manner of threats. As you can see, we even have a simulation for bionics and limbs and resources like gold. That way, when they're in the warehouse of a void laboratory or fortress, they'll know exactly what to grab. Yes, speaking of which, it's time that we pay yet another visit to our old friends, the organization, as we have our full army strength behind us, including the Emperor himself. And with our 4 brand new troop-carrying gunships, this should be easy as pie, baby. For the organization is a cancer, a tumor upon every single planetary body that they touch, and just anything they touch in general, to be honest with you. And thus we must cleanse this place of them. Let us begin, shall we? On this rainy jungle night, their defenses would stand absolutely no chance against us, and neither would their associates. The Emperor and his army were taking some pretty heavy damage here and there, but thanks to our bionics and implants that matched that of Void, we would heal right up from it quite quickly. So destroying their defending force and destroying their base as a whole was a bit of a non-issue, you could say. But I will admit the cheeky little buggers were a bit smarter than we had given them credit for, so they had sent some soldiers to sneak around us and start attacking our ships, which would have left us stranded here, if they would have succeeded, that is. Our ships were left with some pretty major damage, but not to worry, as we had plenty of resources from the Void base that we had just taken over to go about repairing them. What we had left over, and what we could actually fit into our ships, we began bringing all the way back to our cloning station. We'll just stuff it on the shelves with the rest of the resources that we've taken from them. Most of it, like steel, components, plasteel, we're going to use to improve the station and to further expand it a bit here and there, but things like uranium we'll end up using as fuel to continue powering the station for a very long time. Something else that we could do, though, is trade off some of the resources and items like the Void Tech implants and bionics that we're using for our soldiers to some exotic goods traders who are dying to get their hands on them, essentially. Now, you might be asking yourself as to why we would be doing this. Well, we just have so darn many of them, and we do need to get a really big stockpile of silver if we're going to be taking over this planet with an empire. This isn't exactly a big stockpile, but it is a drop in the bucket, and of course, we also ended up purchasing just a few exotic particles to see if these will work in our engines. If so, we may end up buying some more. And yes, indeed, it would seem these are exactly what we needed. This will help us be mobile during any space combat, which I'm sure there will be plenty of. Also worth mentioning, as we're hauling all of these items in and doing a bit of trading with exotic goods traders, we also have a fresh batch of clones growing. But of course, the growth cycle of our little embryos is going to take some time, so in the meantime, we are going to be expanding our station furthermore just above the cloning area and just next to our training area. At some point, the Emperor is going to have to leave this station and some clones who inhabit it, as well as some droids who take care of all the clones who are growing all by themselves. And when he does, he needs to be able to ensure that they can and will be defending themselves. And to do so, of course, they're going to need the appropriate amount of weapons, as well as coolant tanks to cool off those weapons and the shields protecting the station. So, long story short, we're just going to build a shit ton of lasers, railguns, and plasma cannons. Oh, Oh, and we're also going to be building some large advanced batteries, as they're actually double what the small ship capacitors can hold in terms of charge. But then after that, something much more important to the defense of the station that we're going to be working on is the shell, the hull of the station itself, and we are actually going to be utilizing the resources that we currently have and that we had taken from Void recently to double up on the hull. Not only around our important bips and bobs, such as all of our weapons, our cooling stations, our engines, but also of course in places like our fusion reactors, which are very important as well. And speaking of which, with all of these new weapons and all of these new electronics on board of the station itself, we need a new way to create power. So, my friends, I introduce to you an advanced nuclear power generator right in the tip of the station. I know, why am I not building fusion reactors? Well, I can tell you that this advanced nuclear generator is going to be much better than the fusion reactors, even in their overdrive states, even though it does require quite a few coolers to keep it, well, cooled off so that it doesn't overpower and overheat the station and eventually blow up. For a quick comparison, the ship fission reactor actually produces 10,000 power, while the advanced nuclear generator produces 26,000 power. The 10 from the fission reactor is also when it's at its max overdrive, which can also be quite dangerous, so this one is actually even more safe than that. You know, as long as we keep the room temperature below freezing, of course. And with that, my friends, we have a very self-sufficient and very well-defended station to grow all of our little baby clones for our army of the planet. Speaking of which, it would seem that our new batch of our clones is finally finished, and while some of them would actually just go ahead and join the ranks of our normal army with the other faceless, nameless soldiers that we created last episode, a few of the others were special. Well, not really, to be honest with you, but the idea here is that we are going to make them special by giving them some experimental implants and other procedures. There are some Void technologies and implants that are so powerful beyond human comprehension and so rare that we can't just be giving them out willy-nilly. No, we need to be using them for special squads, if you will. And so that is exactly what we have created here, a special squad of clone soldiers who will be doing some very special missions. Now, I don't currently have a name for any of them or even this squad, so if you would like to provide one or both, feel free to do so in the comments section down below. Also, a massive thank you to our friend Trapjaw Gaming 047 for the recommendation of a commando squad of clones. Not exactly sure these are commandos just yet, but we'll see what we can do. We are also going to be building them their own Razor Crest, that way they can use it for missions without getting in the way of the day-to-day operations of the entire army. Now, of course, this program is still in its infancy, so you'll have to bear with me. Speaking of which, we do have a trade ship, well, technically a pirate ship of Kigyar. It would seem that they've stolen a trade ship. Stomping out some pirates could be the perfect opportunity for our little commando squad here to get a taste of actual battle, and also a good chance for some education and experience of battle itself, of course. Not to worry, as they're basically indestructible when compared to a few skinny, frail Kigyar. Now, since it is their first mission, we'll help them out a little bit. We're going to use the station's defenses to attack the shields of the Kigyar ship, and thus taking their attention away from the Razor Crest flying under their shields. Next time, kiddos, you're going to have to figure it out on your own, but Papa shall help you for the time being. Now, of course, the squad of clones here is still quite young, so they did exactly what most 15-year-olds would do when they can't figure something out. They started beating on the side of the ship like a drum trying to get through it, but it seems they're having some issues with the hull foam generator. Looks like we're going to have to try to use our heads here, gentlemen, instead of our fist for a moment. Lucky enough for them, it would seem that Papa Napoleon has sent a very teeny tiny nuclear charge with him that they can use. Absolutely perfect, just what the doctor ordered for destroying plenty of the hull all at once, allowing them to infiltrate the ship before it could repair itself. Now that they're finally aboard the ship undetected, this would begin the stealthy part of the mission, and at first it kinda sorta started out that way, but Again, they are new to this sort of thing, and they kinda went in guns blazing, but to be honest with you, it seems to be working out for them. Slowly but surely, they began making their way to the center of the ship. Now, most of the time in this series so far, we've been attacking places to get their resources, but this time, it's a little different. We don't care about the resources, we care about annihilating these pirates to make an example out of them. The next part of the plan, we're going to need to destroy one of the shield generators of the ship, preferably the one in the back. The reason being is because we need to be very far away from this nuclear warhead when it goes off, otherwise we're going to lose our new squad. So we plan on using the station's weapons to aim right for where we place the warhead, that way we can detonate it from a very far distance away as our new squad is making their grand escape. Well, I think that takes care of that. No more filthy Kigyar pirates in orbit. We'll let the majority of this ship rain down upon the torturous marauders on the planet. That way they know what happens when you mess with the Empire. That being said though, with his mission a complete success, they did leave a little bit of the ship intact, and it would be such a shame to let the entire thing rain down on the infamous pirates of the planet, don't you think? So instead, we decided to bring the front half of the trade ship, the part that's not radioactive at the moment, over with our salvage base, and we'll start deconstructing that for some resources. Though pirates and the organization are a major concern for us, something else that draws my attention are the deserters on the planet, the old Empire who attacked us last episode and is just so damn unwilling to join us. I say we take them over. To go about doing this, we are actually going to utilize quite a bit of our reserves of silver to settle about 8 or so bases. Funny enough, not all of the deserters are unwilling to join us. Some of them, if we're willing to pay them to set up these little bases, would come to our side. But these deserters that we're hiring to set up our bases will not be our little mercenary army. Since so many of them are so untrustworthy, we would have them set up these facilities made with cloning areas. That way we could create our own clone army on the planet and in orbit with our station. And after just a few days, we had enough clones to go about beginning to enslave the population of deserters. And so we begin our takeover. Now, with such a brutal civil war engulfing the planet between my empire and theirs, I suppose we should check in on the troops. Well, it sure looks a hell of a lot like we're winning to me, and you know what? I think that is what is most important. Now, some of you may have some qualms with our method of rebuilding the Empire once more, but I must remind you, my friends, that these deserters are indeed deserters, meaning that they are cowards, and there is no room for cowards in the new Empire. But with all the fighting and fun that was going on the surface, the Emperor was feeling a little bit bit left out, so he decided to go down on his own to get in on the fun. It's been far too long since we had any fresh air, and even longer since we've had the thrill of slaughtering these cowards. I know that everyone else has been doing it in the army, but Napoleon has yet to get his fill for his bloodlust. Plus, this city's not going to slaughter itself, or even conquer itself for that matter, so we had to step in. For even as useful as our clone army is, they are a little bit slow to action, and plus they love to hog all the fun. Over already, I suppose. Well, not to worry, I do have the big finale just waiting inside the ship. Such a shame to see our little pals gone so soon, but I suppose it's time for us to return home. After returning back aboard the station, it would seem we have some good news. While in our absence we were on the surface, we seem to have won this war. As you can see, with all the territories here on the planet, it would seem that the Civil War has ended and in our favor, though I suppose it will never truly end as long as the deserters still exist, but I'm pretty comfortable basically calling this war over because we've taken over essentially 95% of their territories, and where there was once a shattered kingdom of cowards and traitors that was built on a foundation of sand, there is now a true empire in its place, and the traitors and cowards have scurried like the rats that they are into the crevices and corners of the planet, hiding from the light. What few cities that they have left reduced to ash and rubble, abandoned, overrun with pirates and every ne'er-do-well known to this planet. Order has finally been restored here, with a proper imperial government being placed, with it being us, of course, but our work isn't even close to being done yet. But it would seem that we currently have a bit of an interruption, as our sensors on board the station have picked up some type of moon in orbit around the planet, which is very odd because the heavenly object is much smaller than the planet's actual moon. My dear God, that's no moon. It appears to be some type of elaborate ancient spherical Archotech space station. And perhaps worst of all, it's detected us, and it is far from friendly. Our station's engines roared to life, and we wasted absolutely no time firing upon it. The only issue was, the shields of this ancient space station were incredible, and our own station's shields couldn't hold a candle to them. Easily overwhelmed, failing in an instant, we would now have to rely on our hull until they're back up in action. With no other option, the clones would rush to their gunships to begin making their way towards this artificial moon, as we would be bearing the brunt of its attack. Using every single last weapon that we had aboard our station, we would attack that damn dirty Archotech sphere. But unfortunately, you could probably guess it didn't really do all that much, except maybe distract it from attacking our gunships. Speaking of which, our clones would finally arrive, and they would hop out of their ships and begin firing at the rail guns of the spherical moon to try and make their way inside and begin attacking its overlords. The thing is, once we made our way inside, there were plenty of mechanoids, as we had suspected, as the Archotech civilization used plenty of these forerunner types of non-living creatures, but we also found plenty of Void associates and even a few of the Imperial deserters. If I were a guessing man, which I am of course, I would say that both the organization and the deserters attempted to attack this station a little bit before we got here in the hopes that they would be able to use it against us and also each other. Quite a foolish decision of theirs not to suspect that we too would also detect this little artificial moon in orbit around the planet. Or maybe they knew that all along, and this was their last hope of defeating us. Nevertheless, we would eventually begin blasting our way through the entire station until we came upon the control room. It seems that this place is controlled solely by AI. But I'm afraid that even with the swift action of our army, by this point we had lost a massive chunk out of our cloning station. There was only one way to stop this. We can't risk wasting any more time, and we can't risk anyone else getting their hands on this artificial moon. You know what we have to do, boys. As a small squad of 3 clones who were already extremely injured, knowing that they probably wouldn't make it back home anyhow, began prepping the warhead for detonation and prepping this station for its demolition, we had the remainder of our soldiers escape. A selfless sacrifice for the good of the universe. You might think of clones as expendable, but I think of them as heroes. Alright, boys, one last time for the Emperor. Shockingly, even after a massive detonation like that, somehow the outer shell of the sphere still remained for the most part. And shocking to no one, some of the organization's cockroaches managed to completely avoid the blast altogether and also survived. Damn dirty bastards. In case you thought that I was being dramatic earlier when those clones sacrificed themselves to take out the Archotech Sphere Moon, you can take a good look at our station here. We basically lost the entire front half, and with how long it was taking them to move throughout that station to destroy weapons and shields, we most likely would have completely lost our station if they hadn't done that. Even now, with the destruction of the enemy artificial moon, we still have a bunch of mechanized nanites that are trying to tear our station apart and have to be stomped out and destroyed by our clones. Speaking of the enemy station, we had actually used our salvage base to bring what little pieces we could find of it left out there of the outer shell back over to our station so we could begin deconstructing it. Now, initially, I had thought about adding these pieces onto our station, though I couldn't exactly find any good places for them to fit, and if we started deconstructing them to make them smaller pieces, would it really matter anyhow? No, I don't think it would. But not all would be lost when we deconstructed the Archotech hull. We would actually repurpose and use this technology to build ourselves a brand new, powerful shield generator. Damn near identical to the one that the sphere itself was using, meaning that our station will be damn near impenetrable with this. And now I do realize that having the shield encompass such a large area so far outside around the station might seem a little impractical, but hear me out. The reason we're doing that is to protect our ships that are also under the shield but can't get too close to the station because we don't have a shuttle bay large enough to actually hold them, unfortunately, from the Save Our Ship 2 mod. So we're just kind of making do with what we can here. Now, utilizing the rest of the resources from the sphere that we've deconstructed as well as the resources that we currently already had, we began repairing our station, rebuilding many of the sections of it that we had already had. We would have to, of course, remove the hull foam from our distributor, which was trying its little heart out to keep us safe and to rebuild the station as it was basically being bombarded with plasma blast. Anyhow, though, we quickly rebuilt our sections and wings with all our weapons, our mech laboratory, and last but not least, we would also end up rebuilding our nuclear power generator room, but not only one this time. I've decided to add in 2. And as you can see on the outer shell of our hull, I've also replaced it with a reinforced upgraded mechanoid hull for a 3rd layer. Not only would we add in this brand new reinforced mechanoid hull layer around our nuclear generators, though, no, my friends, we would add it around the entire station. The whole damn thing. Weapons, the engines, everything, baby. We are gonna turn this little floating tin can into a reinforced tin can, by God. Not only would we increase its defensive capabilities in terms of how many hits it can take if and when the shield falls, which by this point, with a new shield like this, I don't even know if it ever will, but we would also end up adding in many more plasma and railguns. Now, I will say I am fully aware that we could add in one of the spinal variety of railguns, that type of weapon that is quite long, like we saw on the artificial moon base there, but I don't really want to do that because the station here is more just trying to defend itself and make us clones to help take over this planet and the galaxy. It's not really going to be used for offensive capabilities, more defensive, and that's the only reason I'm not doing that. But my friends, by this point, our station is the most well-defended thing in this entire solar system, I would say. With our new Archotech shield, our reinforced layers of hull, with some of them being up to 4 to 5 layers thick, I think it's pretty safe to say that the station can take care of itself and make as many damn clones as humanly possible to reinforce us. But I know what you're saying, friends. Rat Daddy, you have what's basically an indestructible space station in orbit around the planet that can continue supplying your army with endless amounts of soldiers. You've basically taken over as the primary government of the planet, and all you really have to do left is to take down the organization and some pirates. So, where do we go next? Well, that is a very good question, my friends, and we have a lot of different options. The world is quite literally our oyster at this point. What would you like to see us do next? Until next time.